So in today's video, we're going to be checking out the new Bad Cat and Mark Sampson Era 30 amp. Now this is a beautiful collaboration between the two. Those not familiar with Mark Sampson, which I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're a tube amp lover, is one of the original creators of Matchless and Bad Cat, and of course responsible for one of the most iconic amps, the Matchless DC and H330. Now the HC and DC30 amps are well respected and highly coveted, and of course extremely valuable when they are the Mark Sampson era ones. They decided to recreate this iconic amp because of the fact that those amps are going for top dollar, and why not give players something that's, I don't want to say more obtainable because it's not any cheaper than buying one of the old ones, but at least you're getting a new amp backed by a warranty, and more importantly, it's a new design, so you know that they've improved a few things, because there is some issues with the DC HC30s, which we'll address with this amp. The things that are interesting is they've also decided to improve it. Something that Mark had said that he was a little cautious of doing in the past because of the fact that it was such a hot seller for them, you know, why mess with it? But after 20 years of amp building experience afterwards, he's thought about it and he's like, let's go ahead and fix, or let's improve a few things. On the Matchless amps, the effects loop was noisy, which was problematic, but more importantly, when you crank the amp up, what I experienced was as the amp would distort, so would the effects coming through the effects loop. This effects loop was designed by Bruce Agnator, and it does two things. First of all, it's true bypass, which is beautiful. Now, if you run effects into it, it is virtually quiet with no issues. And the only thing I've noticed with it is that when I run something like today, I'm running the reverb in it, the amp loses just a little bit off the top end. And I don't think it's quieter as an amp, but it's a little bit dampened. And but I actually prefer that. Again, your taste may vary, but for me, the amp has plenty of headroom in the high in the volume space, and a lot of highs. So to have that kind of tamed down a little bit is kind of pleasant. It has 4 EL84s, and of course the most important thing is it has one EF86. So on the first channel, what you have is the EF86, and that is the important thing because that's the magic. A lot of the original Voxes had those. It's a tube that distorts a little bit more than the 12X7, and a lot of players love it, but it's a little chaotic and it's known to be very noisy. This amp has very little to no noise floor, especially even in the EF86 area. Then you have a complement of 3 12AX7s, and you have one 5A R4 tube rectifier. You have 2 switchable channels. It comes with a foot switch that allows you to switch between the 2 channels, which you can assign as one basically being gainy and distorted and one being clean, or 2 gain channels. If you can get both to clean up, which is really tough, you can have 2 clean channels. But more importantly, you can have both on, and that's important because they're not stacked. It's not like one channel feeds into another. It's 2 independent channels running into the power amp. So it's almost like running, I don't want to say 2 amps because you're still sharing the power amp, but essentially 2 preamps, and it's like having like 2 sounds happening. So you get that really big mid-rangey sound of the EF86, and you get the bright kind of mid-scoop complement of the 12X7. To me, when you stack them, which I'll show you, it's like running a Vox and a Fender at the same time. It is 100% hand-wired, point-to-point, and it's made in Costa Mesa, California. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna start with the first channel, and since we have that 6-position depth control, I'm gonna start with it at the first switch, and we'll go through them. I'm gonna use my Tele, but I'll switch to a Gibson so we can hear some humbuckers too. Let's go ahead and start with the first position. So one thing I like about this is I prefer it kind of just in the middle, so about halfway. It gives me to me the most amount of mids. But one thing to think about is if you're trying to run the amp clean, one thing I've learned to do is you back this gain off way, and then you want to go to the fatter setting. That way you can use the neck pickup, and it goes like this. So you can see it cleans up really nice. Let's go ahead and put it back. We'll turn the gain up. And let's switch to the other channel. Now this is gonna be the 12AX7 channel, which to me has more of that mid-scooped, Fendery kind of vibe. And we'll go to the bridge, and here we go. Yeah, that's gorgeous. So you have a bass and treble control right here, and they're basically a passive tone circuit is what it sounds like to my ears. Then, of course, you have something to point out on both channels. You have a volume control, but both the volume controls are pre the phase inverter. So essentially what's nice is you have this master volume over here, so you can really kind of run this amp hot. As you can see, I'm running the volumes at basically full blast, but I'm controlling it with the master. And it's pretty loud. I wanted to run it loud. So let's go ahead, and now what I'd like to do is go ahead and put both channels together, right? And so now we're not stacking the channels, we're just running both. So you're gonna get that British kind of F86, let's do that. F86 with the big honking mids, and then more of a, you know, the modern, not modern, but I'd say the Fender American sound mixed together. Here we go. Let me start with the first channel again, and this is the EF86. This is the more mid-rangey sound, and what's nice is about that depth switch is I'm going to do it just so you guys, clicking that one back for the darker sounding SG. It's going to sound great. Here we go. I love the telly, but I'm all about this. So let me do a little bit more. That's great. Let's go ahead and switch. And now again, we're going to be on the 12AX7 side. Let's go ahead and hear that. Okay, that's great. Let's go ahead and do both. And again, like I said, we're not stacking. This is just both of the channels running parallel. So essentially, for those that don't understand, imagine I'm just running two separate preamps into one power amp at the same time, almost like 2 amps. I could almost claim it's 2 amps going at the same time, except for they're sharing the power section. I just want to be clear with that. Okay, I promised I would show you guys if I pull the effects loop. So let's go ahead and I'll switch it back to the EF86 side. Okay, so what I've done is I've unplugged the reverb from the effects loop. The amp is absolutely fantastic. The guys at Bad Cat should be cheering that the fact that they pulled this off. You know, it's a really tough market to go after, the super high-end connoisseur market, someone who really appreciates an amp like this. And I have to tell you, it took me a long time before I could really appreciate amplifiers of this level. I'm just awestruck by how good it is. It's by far the best Bad Cat they've ever done. And in my top 5 amplifiers I've ever heard in my life. So there it is. There's your Mark Sampson Era 30 Bad Cat. I don't believe it's a limited run. I know through discussing with them that there might be a version in the future, maybe if this does okay, a version with reverb. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see, so you know, for my preferences, this amp, if it had reverb built in, I actually like it, especially if they can keep it like it is now, quiet and sounding really good. The other thing is an attenuator would also be a fantastic option, or having, you know, that would be a great option as well. Or maybe a lower wattage version, but I kind of almost don't want to mess with it. It's so perfect the way it is now. I can see why they didn't want to mess with it either. I can see why. Leave it alone. It sounds great. On that note, I'm going to thank you guys for your time. As always, thank you so much. Till the next time, know your gear.